Sean spends a lot of time talking to people on the phone and TV, and I'll be in the I felt like a sex slave, all right, following days of intense stress in the courtroom. Featuring Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former lover's testimony at today's trial heated up as Jonathan Oddi made his public debut. Oddi was the center of attention. He described all the horrifying details of Diddy's mansion's torture dungeon, where captives were tortured in prison as loud music and blinding red lights played to muffle their cries. In a moment of shock, Oddi turned to face Diddy and shouted resolutely and bitterly, "I was his sex slave and I heard a lot of things." Every syllable pierced the glitzy, imposing music like a knife. Diddy, meanwhile, sat quietly with his pale hands covering his eyes as though attempting to avoid the terrible reality that is being forcibly revealed in the name of justice. Many claim that the courtroom mood was frozen while the details were read out. When the most graphic details were mentioned, did he shield his face, according to witnesses? What precisely was stated in the hearing? And is this the final blow that might destroy Diddy's whole business? Pay great attention to the testimony in the video. An accused slave rocked the courts and the entire globe. Below, a Manhattan federal courtroom is rocked by an Oddi's testimony was really stressful and oppressive yesterday when a key witness, Diddy's slave Jonathan Oddi, once took the stand, regarded as fanciful and irrational, has suddenly taken center stage. When under oath, Cassie Ventura confirmed that Oddi had been hired over and again to commit wicked actions. Everything changed, and Jonathan Oddi's narrative was buried by the world. He wreaked havoc at the hotel of former President Donald Trump in 2018 in Florida and was taken into custody for a shooting incident. Oddi then asserted that he was Diddy's claims made by sex slaves are ridiculed as paranoid. Yet, now that the federal agents have raided Diddy's house, things are changed. After the filing of an indictment for trafficking in adult services, everyone's attention returned to Jonathan Oddi with his hands shackled in front of him in an orange prison jumpsuit, came in like a specter from a party in Hollywood that he had always attempted to forget about. Oddi, who was a stripper once and was viewed as strange because of the Doral, the crucial witness in a trial that might have put Sean in grave danger, was shooting now. Oddi was examined by Judge Arun Subramanian of Diddy Comer's empire. Looked at Diddy after speaking from the bench. The court wants truth, not hyperbole. Stated, however, that today is the day that any buried truth must be revealed. Light, please be completely honest. Diddy sat silently behind. The man once referred to the terrible boy as king, with his lips squeezed tightly, appeared to be imprisoned on his own throne, surrounded by the cameras of lawyers, and the Oddi inhaled deeply and looked at the public with mute disdain. Bloodshot, trembling, but determined to confess the truth, was looking directly into Diddy's voice. Started Diddy, also known as Shark Holmes, ruined my life. He is a monster. In 2018, at the I didn't shoot at the Trump International Hotel because I wanted to. Instead, it was because he employed technologies that I don't understand to alter and control my thoughts. I'm not sure precisely what it was, but it caused me to hear his voice in my head, quesadillas, telling me to detest, hide up his misdeeds. Other people in the courtroom shook their heads. Judge Subramanian hammered his gavel while muttering conspiracy theories, which called for. She responded sharply, Mr. Oddi, please concentrate on particular facts. You say, do you have any proof that Comer's tricked you? Oddi's voice leaned forward. My wrecked life serves as evidence of my rising emotional evidence. He held extravagant parties, made me a mental slave, and gave me weird chemicals, and I began to hear his voice in my mind. He gave me instructions to keep his secrets safer, information on forced girls trafficking. If I didn't comply, he threatened to ruin my family and myself. Oddi went on, but haunting. He spoke more slowly. I'm not here to play the victim. I'm here to reveal what actually transpired. Behind doors secured by wealth and influence, he explained receiving an invitation to Diddy's Bel Air mansion party, which features pink lights and a deep home music reverberating across corridors, models in skimpy attire, moving like drugs and ghosts. I believed I was in a movie when it was handed out like mint candy, but it was actually a selection ceremony and ritual for my impending enslavement. As a sex worker, Oddi's eyes were fixed on the defendant, and Komamis simply nodded without asking. Around realized that I had to engage in adult activities with a woman in front of Cassie was there smiling with almost 10 other people. I assumed she was a victim, but then she was involved as well. He swallowed hard, and I was recorded threatening to kill me if I spoke, and each time I declined, money was moved to my account as a reminder that I was a member of the prosecutor's side. Emily Johnson gave a gentle nod. She provided proof of consistent money transfers from shell corporations connected to Combs. Oddi displayed a $5 million NDA, which I signed out of fear. Brian, Diddy's defense attorney, stated, I signed because I thought I had no way out. Steels immediately objected, claiming that the witness had a history of mental instability. Judge Subramanian, however, motioned for silence because the court finds no proof that he is lying, and it's stunning if what he says is accurate. Oddi talked about he claimed to have been drugged that night, that Diddy was watching as I woke up with my hands bound and nude. Through the camera on his phone, he grinned softly and added, You, Jonathan, you have nothing left to flee from. The courtroom is now mine. Diddy's face went pale as it held its breath, despite his best efforts to maintain a chilly expression. For the first time in his life, his legs shook slightly and his wrists jerked. Career, he realized he was no longer in charge of the story. The turning point was when Oddi created a suicide note and wrote, I almost harmed myself. But then I recalled people drowning just like me, and I knew that if I said nothing, he would continue to use his influence, wealth, and music to force films to be humiliated, and everyone fell silent as his voice nearly broke but did not. It was the sound of a man who had lost everything and had no more fears. Immediately following that, Diddy abruptly, in a low, angry voice, saying, This is absurd. I don't even know this guy. He's insane, Judge Aaron. His attorney quickly pulled him down. Hit the gavel hard, Mr. Combs. Please take a seat. I won't put up with any more outbursts. Do you have any supporting documentation or witnesses in the courtroom, Mr. Oddi? Oddi's eyes paused, desperate, and I only possess my recollections, but I am aware of the reality. Take a look at other litigation, Cassie Gina. Say similar things. Whispering raised once more, but Diddy's attorneys seemed assured, as though this Brian Steele, Diddy's lawyer, stood his ground when the testimony was not scary. Introduction. Your Honor, this is a fantastical tale from a dangerous individual who has been convicted of. There is no proof, no witnesses, and no documentation that Mr. Combs ever met Mr. Oddi is making a last-ditch effort to avoid taking responsibility. Did he whisper to Carter? The judge said, "He's crazy and I'm not involved." Loud enough for other people to hear, he simply cast a piercing gaze down from the bench, as if even a small portion of the statement made by Mr. Oddi, that slowly we face a criminal prosecution that may be the worst collapse in American and entertainment history. He lightly struck the gavel. The trial will be adjourned for 30 minutes and needed for the court to examine documents and recordings. Only a chilly courtroom with Diddy's still eyes gazing through the walls remained, and his testimony ripped the velvet curtain of passion and power apart, believed would keep him safe forever. You are aware of Shah Combs' puff, Daddy P. Diddy. Regardless of its moniker, that photograph is no longer available. Following the lunch break, the trial proceeded with the freak-off party. On May 22nd of 2025, the Miami Supreme Court courtroom once more descended into a suffocating pens in hand. Reporters were prepared to document each and every testimony. Shah Diddy Combs was depicted in the sketch sitting erect, his hands clasped tightly and his gaze frigid. Jonathan Oddi came into the courtroom with his hands clasped, displaying a noticeable nervousness. Started startling people by disclosing information on the alleged freak-off. Oddi claimed that Diddy's freak-off parties were more than just gatherings and ill parties where he had complete control. Dozens of people, including young women, men, celebrities, and even influential people I was unfamiliar with, such as Tyler Perry and Oprah, Leonardo DiCaprio, Winfrey. The victims were coerced into using drugs. I witnessed baby oil being used for repulsive purposes rather than for skincare. They combined it on the body with a resin of some sort to improve feelings, and Oddi kept his voice rising as he reapplied it every 5 hours. Baby oil was. They couldn't help but pour it into unlabeled bottles, scattered over the room, forced to perform intimate activities in order to serve at least 20 individuals in a single night. Oddi, one of Diddy's guests, bent his head and stifled his voice. A judge ruled against the Gavel Voice Company. "Mr. Oddi, these are grave accusations, you say. Can you give names, dates, or any other proof that people were coerced?" Oddi looked up, eyes pleading. "But I'm not sure. He didn't tell us who we were, but I do recall, Your Honor, and specific names. Recall that there were cameras at a villa on Star Island in August of 2017. Everywhere, but he was usually cautious, and I'm sure he erased everything, cancelled such events, since that's where he let his illness run wild." Nature Oddi continued by explaining that some of Diddy's homes weren't just opulent places that are purposefully set up to provide twisted entertainment. Debauched parties were subjected to obvious humiliation, forced adult behaviors and stimulants, even disclosed disturbing information about linen that is specifically meant to absorb blood and physiological fluids, and specialized air fresheners to mask the unpleasant odors. She claimed that Glade or a certain spray had to be the room's constant aroma, because Diddy wanted the courtroom to smell just like he wanted it to, into a tense hush, as Oddi described having to take part in these 6 charades using sheets soaked in fluids such as pee. These vicious, many jurors were noticeably uncomfortable with the revelations. Some turned away because they couldn't continue to gaze at Oddi as she described that icy feeling with composure become the most powerful tool used by the prosecution, a picture of coordinated, repetitive abuse rather than impulsive or unintentional actions. Even more remarkable, Jonathan Oddi A surprise statement, Ord's ex-wife confirmed that she still fears Diddy. Profound psychological wounds as a result of this day and what transpired. Testimony from sources outside the courtroom strengthened the claim that Diddy not only engaged in manipulation but also intimidated his victims for 3 years, according to the defense lawyer's violent retaliation as Jonathan Oddi proceeded to testify like a knife, cutting right through Diddy's facade of authority. The defendant's defense team started their counterattack. They were aware that Diddy's account would be questioned if Oddi's remained uncontested. The lead would cause the entire defense line to collapse like a house of cards. A silver-haired lawyer with keen eyes moved forward, revealing a substantial file that contained "Your Honor." He added in a tone that was tinged with contempt, "Is Oddi's tangled past are considering charges from a man who allegedly used a semi-automatic weapon to storm the Trump National Doral Hotel, shooting at the ceiling while yelling rambling remarks about God and the government? Is this individual who has been diagnosed with mental illness a reliable witness?" Unstable murmurs emerged from the gallery, and Oddi briefly looked up after lowering his head. "Yes," Oddi replied. "I was a wreck. I went crazy and lost because of what I had through, but that isn't proof that for me it is the result of the inferno that Mr. Combs and his equipment pushed. I survived the shooting incident," and he looked straight at the jurors. "I was the only one arrested, but have you ever wondered why an average someone might say, 'I'm telling the truth'? But at the time, nobody believed me. Now that I'm speaking the truth once more," Diddy's attorneys grinned, but the smile was all I wanted. They sought to make Oddi the weakest link, hardly masking their displeasure. An insane man with a smokescreen hiding the truth. An FBI investigation into a man who discreetly disappeared from the press as though he had never been there. But the issue: Diddy's former lover, Cassie Ventura, was no longer the only one who knew the truth. The victim who sued him at the end of 2023 revealed horrific information that nearly matched Oddi's. She also talked about nights in secret rooms, drugged, recorded, and intimidated. And despite the fact that the two had never met, Cass and Oddi's accounts coincided at the most horrifying aspects were bodyguards, loitering, and cameras concealed behind fireplaces. Behind-the-scenes NDAs, such as paper nooses, and most notably the terrifying phrase remembered, "You belong to me." Oddi's and Cassie's testimonies also aligned. What Diddy's former senior executive assistant Philip Pine said between December 2019 and December 2021, it was openly declared in litigation, and Pine's statements depicted Diddy as a domineering individual who utilized authority to compel others to obey and be loyal to him. Hines recalled Diddy allegedly forced the unfortunate Knight to engage in adult behavior, with a Pine's statements from an off-the-books freak-off party are still clearly in my memory. He said that this coercion was "prove your loyalty to me, king," was a member of the violent and perverted atmosphere that surrounded the music mogul, where subordinates were compelled to provide not only their bodies but their time. Pines adding that he frequently had to clean up after multi-day debauched gatherings with ketamine, weed, alcohol, baby oil, and Astroglide were utilized as stage props, along with candles, incense, strong fragrances, and all of the music added to the chaotic ambience he referred to as dark rituals. When ethical lines were blurred, these accounts were initially written off as previously unimportant to the criminal case, were now seen as crucial since they revealed and claimed persistent and consistent pattern of conduct. In the courtroom, the jurors did not longer regarded Oddi suspiciously. They listened and they started to fit the puzzle together. One witness could be incorrect, but witnesses whose accounts matched exactly without any outside interference marked the moment when denial started to falter. According to legal commentators, watched the trial as if the prosecution were playing live chess. They were careful and skillfully did not reveal all of their pieces at once. Everyone anticipated that Oddi, the witness, would be discredited, yet they drew out further bank statements from shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, obtained video from internal emails on erased servers between bodyguards and bosses talking about a weekend cleanup plan. They weren't merely establishing a case, they were creating a crime pattern, a real crime chain, starting with recruiting. Every step of the exploitation control filming threatens to pay hush money. Oddi was no longer a lunatic since he had witnesses, records, and reason. He was the first to have the audacity to disclose the design of a whole machine that controls bodies, and did the man who formerly dominated the media, stage charts, and competitors now have a mind? For the first time, no life preserver was able to save what appeared to be adrift in a flood. His wrongdoings and the torture revelation, the debate that followed regarding the alleged torture chambers sent shockwaves in the courtroom. What was formerly thought to be a complex affair centered on celebrities were no longer just the subject of backstage rumors. They had evolved into the prosecution turned their attention to these areas because they were more sinister and terrifying, claiming that they were intentional traps rather than just spaces that catered to the agreed-upon adult pleasures, locations where tremendous abuse, manipulation, and power were said. That this was not a momentary, aberrant lifestyle or rash behavior, but rather a system, is a network of businesses intended to function covertly and under the guise of the glittering stars of the music business, but in actuality, a network of human traps. Federal officials claim that these chambers did not exist on their own. They were a component of an underground facility that sent several people in a broader pattern. People into hell despite appearing to be wealthy and famous, and what caused the jury shuddered when Oddi, a witness, made earlier remarks. Suspected started to match Cassie's and other witnesses' testimony exactly. With his gaze riveted on them, Jonathan Oddi stated, "I call them torture rooms." The jurors, as there is no better way to characterize them, consent is absent. No boundaries, just punishment and fear. Control for a little moment in the courtroom was almost quiet. Nobody took notes and nobody breathed heavily, not even Diddy, who exhaled softly, clasped his hands together as though he had sensed the trial's most hazardous stage had arriving. Oddi claims that these chambers were intended for more than simply of sex, but complete control. There are blind areas and soundproof doors. There are fingerprints for cameras where nothing is ever recorded. Lock systems that change the temperature of the lighting when someone wishes to regulate every aspect of the victim's life, including their biological reflexes. He hesitated and then uttered quietly, "I know, because I once yelled when I was imprisoned in a room like that. Vomited. After that, I was numb, and I realized that the objective isn't to inflict suffering, but to destroy the person inside of me. The prosecution grabbed this testimony right away in order to build the case. They displayed architectural drawings from a mansion in Los Angeles that had formerly belonged to plans for a business in Diddy's name, revealed 3 rooms buried down in the basement, windowless, with 2 emergency exits deactivated and independent air conditioning systems. A technical specialist was the word torture was never used when they contacted to clarify that this design is not meant for common civilian use. Oddi went on to say that the entire courtroom sensed that these rooms were frequently referred to as the quiet room or Studio X, which seem artistic yet genuine locations where inhumane psychological tests were conducted. He said, "They made me stand with headphones playing for 10 hours straight. The same songs hook repeatedly till I felt like hitting my skull. A female juror lifted her hand to hide the wall. No one turned to face the defendant as the man next to her bowed his head." The prosecutor persisted without letting the echoes subside, saying, "This is no longer a controversy involving adults," they stated in court. "This is the process of planning and upholding a system of torture and control, not to satiate lust, but rather to see consolidating authority and stifling criticism." According to federal investigators, these rooms existed in Miami, New York, and other locations, and at an Antigua house that Diddy has since sold. Information gathered from maintenance personnel, invoices for soundproofing materials, and schedules for art use in the home. One thing emerged from every testing session: the system was coldly planned, and Oddi concluded his thoughtful testimony with a statement that caused everyone to tremble. "I was imprisoned in hell, which I had previously believed to be an abstract realm, a particular address with the name of the owner, and that individual is seated today directly before me. At this point, claims of sexual enslavement were more than just a metaphor. The prosecution said that this was not a question of personal preference or pleasure, but a cunning, deceptively hidden kind of human trafficking beneath stage lights and the entertainment industry's facade of authority." The current query was if the aforementioned video recordings supported this series of allegations refuting the startling evidence regarding the torture chambers. Focus shifted to the strange videos that the prosecution said they had gathered, but the prosecutor's descriptions have not yet been made public. Quiet the courtroom as a whole, 5 sensitive videos. There are up to 9 videos, according to government data, identifying the individuals the prosecution claims are proof of organized abuse. The judge mandated that the tape be shown only to the jury via an established secondary screen, straight ahead of them to keep the rest of the courtroom from seeing the content. After this decision, there was evident tension in the trial on Diddy's side. Disputed, claiming that the recordings only captured adults engaging in consenting behavior. However, the prosecutor made it clear that nothing is voluntary when coercion and psychological manipulation is at play. One of the most alarming charges Cassie was taught that Diddy frequently recorded these sex sessions without complete consent, and the recordings were served as intimidation tactics that made the victims stay quiet and compliant. If this information is confirmed, it will become the most important component of the prosecution's plan. The claims pertaining to the strange gatherings Cassie detailed did not involve rash or sporadic acts of violence. She said that they followed a distinct pattern that was structured like a haunting ritual. It started with a verbal description that Cassie had to narrate and explain what was about to happen. Then baby oil was applied, and then speech exercises, which she claimed were frequently hurried to complete in a hurry. Finally arrived adult sexual activity, occasionally with another guy seeing, and other times with that man taking part. But one of the most startling video evidence was found in a public hotel hallway rather than private rooms. The now famous 2016 foot and surveillance footage showed Diddy following Cassie, kicking her and knocking her on the ground, pulling her back into the room. This CNN video was released and the jury was repeatedly shown 2024, which became indisputable visual evidence of the prosecutor claims that long-term control was the cause of the public violence. Machinery in background today, a former hotel security guard in that video. He claimed that when Cassie arrived, pleaded to leave several times, but Diddy insisted she wasn't leaving. Testimony completed the image of a person and validated the video. System of coercion that permeated public life outside of private spaces as part of a thorough control mechanism. The terrifying aspect of these videos is not in their strangeness, but in the way they depict Cassie's obvious decline. Everything progressively changed from initial involvement to psychological numbness and acquiescence, and then humiliation. According to some witnesses, including male escorts who were recruited, the incidences escalated from urinating on other people to humiliations such as being filmed against her will or made to crawl in one of the federal government made the most grave allegations today, claiming that Diddy once instructed a male escort to urinate on Cassie. The escort also provided testimony that revealed once heard beating noises coming from the adjacent room and saw Diddy hurling a bottle at Cassie's face, caused him to leave due to erectile dysfunction. He remembered a horrifying moment in which Diddy seized Cassie's hair and pulled her away from a computer chair to the bedroom, even though she was yelling, kicking, and sobbing, despite the fact that not all of the tapes have been made public. Prosecutors maintain that a whole system running silently behind what was captured on camera is clandestine group. They said that this was not a desire-driven anarchy. Hotels had prearranged rooms as part of a planned marketing campaign. LLN order to maintain control, and male escorts weren't picked at random, were transported from other states, resembling a network of human trafficking. The employment of medicines as a weapon for manipulation was one particularly noteworthy detail, to testify that the party environment was designed to cause attendees to lose. Cassie attested that there were evenings when she was vigilant and was able to resist. Even with her eyes, she was unable to say no, and she couldn't recall what she had done, just that she had changed. The defense strongly opposed painting a totally new image. They said Cassie became heavily involved in drug use. She chose to use even more than Diddy, and they said that Diddy wasn't the addict's provider, but someone attempting to assist her in quitting on a break instead of a gas pedal. They told the story of a lost woman who was rescued by a good man, not a victim of a vicious manipulator, and the prosecution refused to back down. Evidence indicating Diddy was the one who introduced Cassie to her first drug connections was presented. They detailed this as an additional means of control to keep her reliant. They also disclosed a startling information. Diddy was accused of overdosing at the same moment Whitney Houston passed away, highlighting the fact that Cassie wasn't the only one with an addiction issue. These days, some of the most unsettling films don't originate from private meetings or secret evidence, but straight from Diddy's prior talks and social media. What used to be regarded as odd or humorous is now thoroughly examined from a legal standpoint. Videos of Diddy making mysterious comments about his party that once made people chuckle are now haunting. In one footage, he states, "Do you think I'm not clear? Misunderstanding, they will shut them down if we learn about my celebration. They're going to arrest me." Diddy was seen at a charity event. In another video that was played in court, he offered the winner of the auction a night out, adding that the individual would awaken next him. In the past, such comments would have been regarded as amusing or strange, but in the context of current accusations make me shiver when I hear those words. The question arises, are these clips carefully chosen, or do they represent actual, reliable evidence? Footage to produce a dramatic narrative, but when claims of torture chambers emerged, everything went much beyond a typical celebrity. Controversies are becoming a national legal. Why did the court in Storm 6 adamantly deny Diddy's bail on Thursday, May? What initially appeared to be a standard pre-trial hearing on August 8, 2025, swiftly turned into a Judge Aaron Subramanian saw the historic lawsuit's key turning point and oversaw one of the most tense and startling incidents since the jury selection started on May 5th, in accordance with the timetable for the formal trial, would begin with introductory remarks on Monday, May 12th, and prosecutors anticipated the procedure to take 8 to 10 weeks. However, even before when testimony started, the court was shocked to learn that Diddy may have lied. Under oath at earlier hearings, the courtroom environment, already extreme tension, quickly replaced the stifling media presence. At the final hearing to determine the final roster of 45 prospective jurors, prosecutors produced evidence that directly refuted Comam's earlier court claims. In particular, they charged him of purposefully contacting and swaying witnesses, something Diddy had done on numerous occasions. Denied on oath, this was a key issue of contention throughout the lawsuit, was mentioned in previous bail hearings. The most shocking moment occurred when, while incarcerated at the Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, prosecutors disclosed Brooklyn Comams made advantage of at least 8 other prisoners' phone numbers to three-way calls are a means to get around regulations and get in touch with persons who are not on the authorized contact list. In addition to breaking jail rules, this was saw as deliberate deception and manipulation, but it didn't end there. One of the prospective jurors who was just added to the roster worked in the prison where Diddy was detained. The courtroom erupted with this discovery, with some even laughing at the ridiculous and odd coincidence. Others wondered if this individual had been bought off or offered something to sway the response of trial. Judge Subramanian was prompt and decisive. He removed that juror from the panel right away and took a more severe stance, denouncing the defense and prosecution teams for failing to fully screen prospective jurors. Silence descended on the courtroom as he highlighted the gravity of the charges and the exacting requirements necessary for justice, but the issue didn't stop there. Prosecutors kept provide proof that Comams lied about the jury issue in addition to deliberately misled the court regarding his interactions with important witnesses they claimed had made an effort to speak with those who had been subpoenaed by the jury in an act seen as a significant obstruction of justice through a number of intentional acts. Did he now face accusations of obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and perjury are all crimes that might significantly increase his punishment beyond what the public had anticipated. As the official one thing is certain when the trial starts, the legal environment is getting more intense, and the mogul, who was previously acclaimed as the most powerful king of the music industry, is the center of attention. If these accusations are validated, he might be sentenced to life in jail, in addition to observe how his reputation, legacy, and entire empire completely collapsed. This legal earthquake is trembling the hips because it was meticulously constructed over 30 years, hop world and posing significant queries on justice and power immunity in Hollywood. Shah Diddy was charged, according on the prosecution's documents, of getting in touch with former co-worker Keena Harper 58 times in 4 days, beginning right after sunrise. On September 10, 2024, Richard filed a lawsuit alleging significant misbehavior, including assault. It was reported that Commerces and Harper had made a total of reach 128, but on September 14th of that year, Emily abruptly stopped one of the top prosecutors. Johnson claimed in court that these exchanges were more than just personal, but included deceptive features. According to her, Me attempted to recruit Harper's assistance in establishing a relationship and persuading the victim that they had willingly engaged in adult behaviors that implied a definite intention to continue. Johnson also charged Combans with exploiting financial support as a secret transaction, intermediaries to disseminate false information with the intention of psychologically influencing witnesses, an act considered a flagrant disruption of the legal process if demonstrated evidence of misconduct. But Kami's prior denial could amount to grave allegations of obstruction of justice, of bail because of the possibility of witness tampering is no longer unexpected. Hearing on November 27, 2024, Judge Aaron Subramanian referenced jail regulations and proof of his violent inclinations, infractions pertaining to unapproved communications. Additionally, on September 19, 2024, Robin Tanowski refused bail, claiming she couldn't ensure public safety if Judge Andrew Carter Jr. upheld this ruling after Combs was discharged. Appeal showing how the defendant's case was consistently evaluated by the federal court. Mays' case files are getting heavier and more serious. Accusations including extortion plots, human trafficking, and transportation individuals for prostitution. According to prosecutors, between 2008 and 2024, Commies oversaw a coordinated network engaged in kidnapping and forced labor, arson, corruption, and obstructing the course of justice. But the recent hearing further worsened the situation when the contempt and perjury accusations of a court were shown how serious the case was. Federal perjury prosecutions have skyrocketed and carry a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. Apart from the primary accusations, the defense team found it more concerning that these disclosures might influence jury selection and have a significant effect on the whole trial, until Judge Subramanian openly voiced his doubts regarding Combs' legitimacy while expressing rage at what he perceived to be the situation of the music mogul is one of deceit and contempt to the legal system. When Judge Subramanian declared in an unprecedented ruling that he would refer portion of the case to federal prosecutors for extra investigation into other perjury-related allegations and obstruction of justice at the same time, he cancelled some procedural rights that were formally granted to combis as attorneys, highlighting the fact that lying during court proceedings had a direct impact on this. At this decision, the courtroom fell silent in shock. The limitation of due of procedural restrictions, Com's defense team was denied crucial resources in their plan that clearly put them at a disadvantage prior to the start of the trial. After the hearing, nobody could dispute that the events had fundamentally altered the course of the case, was formerly thought to be an unpredictable trial, had now almost unmanageable, and all legal eyes are now on what the court will do next. The judge's stern reaction to the recently revealed details changed, though the ambiance of the courtroom conveys a strong sense of seriousness and dedication to preserving the law's openness, regardless of how the trial begins. As May 12th progresses, it becomes evident that the judge no longer has faith in the defendant's sincerity. Diddy's Manhattan case is no longer just a court case between parties, but also has significant legal ramifications and a more profound public significance. Next Tuesday, when the opening remarks are made, everyone will be watching. We'll continue to focus on the Manhattan federal courtroom, where the upcoming phase of this remarkable legal tale will take place, will be written. The important query is not just if Shah Diddy, whether he is guilty or not of the grave accusations against him, but also whether the court system's integrity can be preserved in spite of attempts to discredit it. What are your thoughts on Oddi's testimony? And do you think justice will be done? Please leave a comment below to help keep this story going. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. I'll see you in the future video.